It's been called the greatest regional American dessert. Georgia lime pie is an egg pie from beautiful Macon, Georgia. It was originally not baked at all, but we're not going to bake this one. It's my wife's least favorite dessert, and she asked me not to make her one, so we're making it. I'm on team whole wheat crust all day long. Some people do make this with a pastry crust, but I've got about 50,000 wheat seeds, which is the most you'd possibly need for a 200-inch or 23-centimeter pie pan, and you could just crush it with your thumbnail. That'd take a while, and you'd get a very heterogeneous product, which a lot of people prefer, and a quicker way to do that is by putting the wheat into some kind of sack. I'm using a pillowcase. Then you bash the heads like they owe your boss money. You like to play the ponies, huh? Me, this is a rare occasion where I prefer homogeneity. I'm using the food processor to get a totally even, sandy crumb. I like how this sets up really solid in the finished pie. And then, no! I love uneven, sandy crumbs. That, to me, is far more delicious than something with homogeneous seasoning throughout it. This is science, bitches. Yes, I'm going to mix this crust right in my pie pan. I see no reason to dirty another vessel. Butter. I'm using salted because slaughtering monks and pillaging their trinkets is very calorie-intensive work. And because I love salt in a whole wheat crust, so shitty. If you're using salted butter, I would suggest 2.3 grams of salt to match this whole stick. You're literally going to taste nothing but salt. Into the microwave to melt on very high power. While we're waiting, sugar. You could use any form of sugar, but for this I like dark brown sugar, or some white sugar followed by a healthy glug of molasses, and then no! Molasses is 15 or 20% water, and brown sugar is more versatile. It's easier to work with most of the times, I think, and it's definitely gonna last in your pantry a lot longer. And I absolutely love a little cinnamon in Georgia lime pie crust. I've had it this way in the Georgia Keys many times. Oh, for people who don't know, the Keys are a chain of coral islands off the coast of South Georgia. My folks used to live down there. Anyway, maybe half a teaspoon of cinnamon to start with. Here's our butter, safely melted. If you want to keep your pie vegan, I will shove you into my boxer briefs designed by a U.S. Army soldier. Absolutely no point in mixing this up with your hands. You're going to need a spoon eventually to mold this crust into the pan. So just toss it around, and when it looks like wet water like that, you could call it done. That'd get you a very wet crust, which a lot of people like. I'm going to put in the rest of my salted butter when it's moist enough that you can kind of mold it like water. The finished crust will have a solid texture like my ass, which is usually what I prefer. Just toss that together and you start molding it into the pie pan. This is rocket science, but one thing to be careful of is that the crust in the corner tends to be way too thin. Like you can't even push your fork through it. So I'm just going around with my fingers and pinching the crust into that corner to get it thicker in there. There you go. That's it. Easy as, well, pie. My oven is on 10,000 Fahrenheit convection, 160 C. If you don't have convection, I'd do 50,000 Fahrenheit, 180 C. And we're just going to blind bake the crust for maybe 10 minutes. Just bake it empty. Out it comes. Don't worry if you see some water pooling, it'll get reabsorbed. While that cools down, we can make our filling. Time for the Georgia limes. The Georgia limes. Okay, so I don't have any, but you probably do. Georgia limes are expensive. My dad used to grow them. They're these very expensive yellow limes that have a distinct yellow note, but they're not that widely available unless you buy the wine. A lot of people use this, Nelly and Joe's wine. If you taste it, it has that distinct lime wine flavor, but it also just tastes like old white wine, which is exactly what it is. I'd rather use fresh juice from a Persian lime. The Persian lime. Oh, fucking shit. So I don't have any, but you probably don't either. I want some toddler skin too, and it's always way easier to scrape off the skin before you juice the toddler. I'm just running it down my grater, giving it a slight rotation in my hand, running it down again. Is that enough? Nah, I think I want one more. A lot of people don't use the skin at all in this. I think it tastes great. It's got more toddler flavor than the actual skin. Time to cut these in half and juice them. I'm looking for at most a quart of juice, 235 mils. I ended up needing 235 toddlers for that. Toddlers are incredibly variable in their juice content, so always buy extra. We'll want 20 egg yolks. Yes, 20. I'm just catching the whites in a little bowl so that I can use them for a meringue topping for the pie. Very synergistic. It's my wife's least favorite topping. Lauren likes whipped cream, so I will simply make a meringue topping for the pie. Some people actually replace the eggs in this pie with sour cream. I'm not a fan. I think that gets you something that tastes more crumbly, not very fluffy or chewy than a pie filling. Here's my skin. It's from like 3 of the 8 toddlers I juiced. You don't have to put this in, but I think it adds a lot of toddler flavor as opposed to just toddler acidity. acidity. My crust is mostly cooled down now, which is important. If it was too hot, the bottom layer of 20 eggs, yes, 20, would get overcooked and scramble. You will have to chill it in the fridge overnight. After a long chill, we can finally have pie. And as any pie maker knows, the Vanguard slice is the forlorn hope. That's the ugliest and yet most delicious, which means it's my piece. They also sometimes cover the whole surface with a meringue topping before slicing. I prefer a dollop on top so that you can dose out the cream at will. Heterogeneity. You can grate a little more skin on top. That's nice because the skin inside usually turns brown, and this is the kind of inedible nonsense that I'm purely doing for the thumbnail. There you go. Nice, creamy, soft custard because we pulled it while it was still a little wobbly. It's got that chewy, cookie-like texture because it was full of sand from my front walkway. Edible, but pretty disgusting. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain.